Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Foxworth Theory. I am your host, Eugenia Foxworth. This show is about business, entertainment, culture, fashion, and the arts. And we bring to you the movers and the shakers from around the world, and we allow them to tell you their story. Our guest today, or shall I say our guest this week, is Nabate Isles, a Grammy winning trumpeter, producer, composer, and his album, Eclectic Excursions, was a successful 40 jazz release. He earned Grammy Awards for his participation. I'm so sorry. He has won Grammy Awards for his participation on Christian McBride's big band releases, The Good Feeling and Bringing It. When Nabate is not making music, he's behind the journalist's desk, hosting sports broadcasts for the NFL, NBA, MLB, NCAA basketball, and World Boxing Championship prize fights. He currently has a series on Manhattan Cable called So Much to Talk About. Nabate, welcome to the Foxworth Theory. That was a long mouthful of all these various eclectic things that you do. Thank
Oh,
you.
thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. And I wanted to also add too that I currently do a podcast as well called Where They At, in which I interview retired Hall of Fame caliber athletes, which has been such a treat. Been working with that podcast for a little bit over 2 years now, so that's been a great thing. So I'm just blessed to be on your show, and I'm blessed to be doing what I love to do. It's so important for all of us to find that passion and what we want.
And thank you for sharing that, but I would have needed an oxygen tank to continue. I was running out of air. You're a trumpeter, but let me tell you, that's not a part of my DNA. So let's begin.
Yes.
What inspired you to pursue music and study the trumpet?
Wow, a great question. This is something. It's meant to me. Trumpet's meant to me so much since I was 8 years old, and I grew up in Lefrak City, over Regal Park, Queens. Grew up there, and my father actually did. My mother always had music playing. Big Motown fan, Atlantic Records. All CTI. She loved those records from those record labels. And then my father had a show called Musical Expressions, which was on WBAI, a radio show which was featured jazz musicians for about 9 years. So it was right during my developmental years, since from third grade to 12th grade, like 11th, 12th grade, he did the show. So that really, cultivated my knowledge of the music, my appreciation for the music, and then my eventual love for the music. And it was great to be able to meet so many musicians through my father, meeting Dizzy Gillespie and Doc Cheatham and Big Nick Nicholas and Milt Hinton and John Faddis, who was a early mentor of mine, Jimmy Owens, who's like my musical father, meeting all these great musicians. I mean, the list goes on. Terrence Blanchard and Branford Marcellus that he interviewed. I got to meet Randy Brecker, who I'm friends with to this day as well. So it's just so many great people I got to meet through my father, and got to see so many concerts. And then I started to get more inspired to be a musician when I was in middle school, around seventh grade.
Mm, that seed was really planted, believe me.
Yes, yes.
So,
And they didn't force it. They didn't force it, which is beautiful. They just let me be. They wanted to give me trumpet lessons at 8 years old. At not 80, 8 years old. I was running out of breath there. At 8 years old, and I they saw that when I started to get serious about it, that's when they gave me I always had the resources, but they wanted to have me find my way, find my place in what I wanted to do.
beautiful, beautiful. So tell us about your music education in New York City And at the Eastman School of Music?
Yes, yes, indeed. I went to LaGuardia LaGuardia High School Music and Art Performing Arts. You know, that's the famed school. Back in the day, it was two different high schools: the High School Performing Arts, which is down around Rockefeller Center area, Midtown, and then there was Music and Art, which was up where A. Philip Randolph is now, right on City College, the campus of City College. So yes, so I went to LaGuardia, and that's what inspired me to play because I wanted to be in LaGuardia. I wanted to make LaGuardia, and then when I made LaGuardia, I met a lot of talented musicians, and also really was began to be serious about it and everything. Justin DeChocho, such a great educator, and I still keep in touch with him to this day. As well. He was the one that started the jazz program in music and art. And then of course it became LaGuardia in 1984. So I was in LaGuardia in the early 90s, early to mid 90s. I was at LaGuardia High School. And then I went to the Eastman School of Music, which was such a pleasure. I'm in touch with the Eastman School of Music. I do a lot of stuff with their alumni, and it was a um, great way to really, I have to say, to really develop as a musician and also be around like different types of people. I kind of was It was a culture shock at first. Eastman School of Music, very staunch conservatory. Not many people, brown and black and brown people there. But it was good for me because my parents always taught me to be able to relate with all types of people, be able to communicate, be yourself around those people. Don't be intimidated or anything like that around different types of people that are different from you. And I cultivated a lot of friendships and everything, and it was great to go there. And then I went to New York University and NYU for my master's there, and started to get into film scoring, meet a lot of filmmakers. I keep in touch with a few filmmakers from NYU, and yeah, and then at that time I was starting to play professionally. So there are times like I would miss a week or two at a time at NYU because I was on tour, or I would have to go to class and a master's class, for my master's degree, go to class at 9 a.m. when I played at the Knitting Factory the night before, or played at Jazz Standard, the night before, something like that. So yeah, it's interesting.
Very. You're quite an eclectic person, and
Oh,
I
thank you.
love that. What
Thank
would
you.
you consider to be your first big break in music?
Oh, well, props to Ralph Alessi, who was my second mentor for sure on the trumpet. Jimmy Owens, my musical father, but Ralph Alessi is my mentor, the great trumpeter, one of the great trumpeters in the world. With He can do everything on the instrument. And I studied with Ralph at the Eastman School of Music for the 4 years he was there. That was the 4 years I was there. We became great friends, still friends to this day. And he recommended me to be part of Steve Coleman, to play in Steve Coleman's band, and I did a couple recordings with Steve while I was in college, while I was at Eastman. So that really got me an opportunity to meet so many great musicians during that, where I got to work with them years down the road. I mean, Dave Gilmour, the great guitar player. Not Dave Gilmour of Pink Floyd, but Dave Gilmour, another Dave Gilmour, who's an excellent musician himself. We met through Steve Coleman, and he was on my first album. He's going to be on my next album. We've played together for over, wow, 25 years. We played together. And VJ Iyer, who I've worked with in the past through meeting him with Steve Coleman. Reggie Washington as well. Gene Lake as well, that I've worked with through the years. So it was great to get that. And Ravi Coltrane, met Ravi, got to work with Ravi Coltrane through Steve Coleman and work with him in the past years. So it was great to really have that opportunity, and it was kind of like I found my voice musically, because a lot of those musicians and a lot of Steve's music inspired my music on what it is now. So
I, inspiration and standing on the shoulders, as I always say, are those who came before us is wonderful.
yes.
You also played and recorded with Philip Bailey, Jeffrey Osborne, Jill
Hmm.
Scott, Robert Glasper, Diana Reeves, Gregory Porter, and Frida Payne. So you've named so many. Um, with this, what was it like? with this adventure in music making with them. What was it like?
Oh yes, no, it's just amazing. Like working with Robert Glasper with Most Def. That's when we knew Robert and I knew each other before Most Def's band because Robert was at the New School, which is a New School university for social research. That's a university that has one of the top jazz programs in the country. That was based in New York. So Robert started to go there when I was at Eastman, but I still kept in touch with local musicians, musicians I went to high school with and everything. So when I would come back from Rochester, I would go to the sessions and interact with these great musicians. So Robert, we met then, and then worked together in Most Def's band when Will Calhoun, the drummer from In Living Color, was the musical director, the MD. And so just through that experience, Robert, like throughout the years, I've worked with him in different ensembles and everything like that. And Jill Scott was involved in one concert for Afropunk, which was done at the Apollo Theater. So that was great to work with her and everything. And then through Christian McBride, working with Philip Bailey and Jeffrey Osborne and Diane Reeves, the Leslie Odom Jr. Like I was all through Christian and working with him. I've been able to work with so many great musicians and everything like that. And then a couple, musicians, and Kenny Lattimore as well. Just through working with Christian, it's been great and everything. And I still keep in touch with these great artists too. So it's really nice.
Of course, you have to.
Yes.
And your debut album as a band leader,
Mhm.
Eclectic Excursions, is a very unique recording. Tell us about how you came up with making the record.
Wow, I have to say, yeah, I did this record maybe like 20 years into after 20 years of being a professional musician and being a sideman for 20 years. I've meant to record a record years earlier, but I think the timing was right to do it at that time. I just felt I was very scattered musically and scattered like personally, and not in a bad way. Just like I felt like when you're creating an independent album, that's something you have to really have like your business in order. You have to have your organization, your time management together. You have to be able to have budgets and stuff like that. So, and also being a radio producer for 5 years for NBA radio, being a radio producer for ESPN radio for 2 years, like that really helped me be more organized in creating a production, and also working in different music companies and everything. I got to learn throughout the years, everything like that. Now I could have did a record with a couple of labels while I was in my 30s, early 30s or so, like late 2000s, around that time. But I just I don't know. I just felt it just wasn't right, and everything, and also like financially wasn't right too. You know what I mean, like and stuff.
Mhm.
So
Right.
I just felt like, and it just wasn't the right place. I'm not going to do something unless I know it's completely right and that I'm in the right mindset to do it. So finally, this album came about, and I want to get all my friends that I've worked with throughout the years, as I mentioned, Dave Gilmore earlier, and everything, and people that I've admired, some people I haven't with that I admired, younger musicians. I want to have like a very broad age gap with this, and also like I was inspired by Quincy Jones, inspired by all what he's done. He's the personification of eclectiveness, you know what I mean, and everything, and with him, like his music, I love how his music featured all types of genres and styles with his records, So I walk in a space, the dude back on the block, Q's Juke Joint, features all scopes of black music, American black music, which is American music is black music. So it basically exemplified that. And I wanted to do that on this record and have just so many different types of styles and everything like that. Wanted to really experiment with that.
Okay, when we come back, I'm going to continue this because we are going to have to take a short break, but I want you to think about this and make it short when, we come back. You, with the hip hop lyricist Niles and vocalist Beth Griffin Manley, you
Hmm.
recently co released a record dedicated to the late great actor and humanitarian Chadwick Boseman. called Superhero, Ode to Chadwick Boseman. I want you to think about it, and when we come back from our break, what inspired the three of you to pay tribute to this wonderful actor? But at this time, when we come back, we'll talk with you again about another occupation, but I needed you to finish your conversation about that part of your life. You know, the other part, being a sports journalist, it's going to be exciting, audience. Stay tuned to the Foxworth Theory. I'm Eugenia Foxworth.